Hi everyone, my name is Dwayne and I am going to talk to you today about teaching versus facilitating, specifically from a community college instructional perception. And so the traditional college student is 18 to 25 years old, and they're most likely recent high school graduates. And when they come into the college classroom, they're perceiving it probably from their K-12 experience, and so they have a lot of expectations of what they think students and teachers should be doing. They may have limited to no work experience. They may be exploring life, meaning taking different subjects to try stuff out. And so that's a traditional college student. The non-traditional college student is probably over 25 years old. Some of them may be a returning student, meaning they tried out college right out of high school and then for whatever reason did not continue or finish with it, and then they go off and do work, etc., and then come back. And many of them are more successful when they return because they have very specific goals. Some other non-traditional college students are older students who may be returning to college to enhance their education so that they can get better jobs or get promoted within whatever kind of company or profession that they're already in. And some of these students may actually have management experience, and so you see me reaching for my bag because I am going to pull out an article that has a quote from the Association for University Regional Campuses of Ohio, where they actually say a non-traditional student may have several years of management experience. And that's a true statement at community colleges, as well as other colleges and universities. And that's because many students want to enhance their working opportunities, their employment. And they may already have their life path established. Now, the traditional college teacher, so I'm going to call them teachers, although many people will call them professors or instructors, but because we're looking at the difference of teaching versus facilitating, so I'm just going to go with teacher when I'm talking about the traditional college instructor or professor, and then I'll say facilitator when I'm talking about the non-traditional college instructor or professor, depending on how their style of engaging their class in learning goes. So teachers, according to Knowles, let's see if I've got the book, Holton and Swanson, are generally responsible for what, how, and when, and if students learn. That's kind of an ownership that instructors take. And so teachers are, they're the ones who will organize the content. They are expected to speak clearly. In many cases, students wish, they expect, they wish that the teacher would be entertaining. Teachers decide when and how questions are allowed for, meaning do they allow students to interrupt, or do they have specific times for question and answers? And by the way, if you're following this, I'm on slide number 4. One of these days I'll learn the technology to allow you to both see the PowerPoint and maybe see me, or at least hear me. In any case, they will determine when questions are allowed for. They'll decide when there are going to be discussion groups, and then they will test you. And that's pretty norm. It's a standard norm for community colleges. The traditional student's perception of a teacher, the positive perceptions may be that they look to the teacher to deliver the information. I mean, it's certainly easy. You go into a classroom, you're going to hear about history, the teacher will tell you all about it, and then you're good to go, right? There may be clear directions by someone of authority. So again, teachers in college classrooms often like to take over. It's their room. They'll take the authority, make sure everybody knows that they're the one in charge, and then they dictate how everything's going to run. The students may believe the teacher to be the expert in the material, and they may see teachers as role models. These are the traditional students' perception. Some of the positive perceptions, some of the negative perceptions may be that the students actually know that there's more than what the teacher's saying that's out of the book, you know, because a lot of times teachers get stuck on what's in the book, and that's all they do, and there's more than that. They may find that the teacher is inflexible, that there's no room for self-direction or determining even how to learn on your own. The teacher may perceive themselves to be the only expert in the room, but that may not be true. There may be peers in the room that actually know as much or more about the topic than the instructor does, the teacher. Non-traditional students' perceptions of the traditional teacher. The positives may be that the teacher, they expect and get new information from the teacher. They may appreciate the fact that there's structure to help all the students stay on task. The teacher may have experience to share, especially if it's something like a vocational program where the teacher actually works out in industry and then instructs it as well. Teachers may be perceived as a colleague when there are peers that they're also working in that environment, and they realize that they have connection with the instructor through the work that they do. Some of the negative perceptions of a non-traditional student about a traditional teacher would be that the teacher might be teaching outdated material. Some of that may be related to the books in which they use. Some of it may be that the teacher left the field and simply presents material based on what it was when they used to work there. There may be no allowance for shared experience, because again, the teachers often will dictate how people get together or the lectures that are happening, etc. The teacher may not be current in the field, as I said, and the students may realize that some of them may actually know more about the content than the instructor does. So now the college facilitator. So again, this is still a college professor, but this is a professor who is determined to sort of alter maybe how the classroom environment is going to feel and how the learning is going to take place. So instead of sort of lecturing and quote unquote teaching, they're going to facilitate learning through different styles and different methods. And so Taylor, Moreau, and Fiedler from the book Developing Adult Learners talk about how the power in a classroom, in a facilitated type of a classroom environment goes, and that is the goal is to share it in some sense. So at a community college, that's where we run into some issue, because we've got such a wide range of students and ages and emotional development and maturity, etc. And some students who really want to be there, and other students who are there because their parents made them come. So there's this big dynamic that sort of needs to be navigated through. But in the end, a facilitator is meant to share some of the decisions about content, procedures, etc., learning styles, learning methods, to share that out with the students. So this becomes a challenge when the content is directed by something called a COR, which is a course outline of record. And the COR, that's something that colleges have. It's an outline of the material that has to be taught. Now this is where the flexibility comes in. As long as you teach this material as the college professor, as long as you teach the material, you're okay. It doesn't matter how you teach it, as long as it gets taught, meaning that the students get to learn it. So if you facilitate the learning or teach it, that's up to you. But the CORs have specifics in it that have to be done. So the students don't actually get a lot of leeway in the kind of content that they're going to deal with, because there's a course outline of record that dictates the material that must be covered in a semester. And that's true with student learning outcomes, which are part of a course. And these are kind of related to a college being accredited. So accrediting commissions go around and certify whether or not this college is doing a good job and which colleges aren't. And so that's where on the facilitator's part, we sometimes struggle with how to get with the aspect of letting students dictate what they want to learn. But as a facilitator, one thing that we should be doing is try to understand the background of students, because some students will know nothing about our subjects, and other students may actually be equal to our knowledge, or experts in the field or in that content matter. It doesn't have to be a vocational program. And so if they're experts, then we want to sort of know who they all are, and we're able to draw from them their practical experience or their practical knowledge that they are able to share with other students. So that's one thing that a facilitator may do is through a discovery process, we get to know who our students are, and then we're able to help guide them in the ways that are best for them to learn. And some of that may be sharing experience with through the peers in the classroom. So now a traditional student's perception of a facilitator, the positive side may be that there's more discussion than just the plain old go into a history class and hear the lecture. There may be more small group discussion, etc. It's possible that there, in the 21st century, that we might even be using 21st century technology, which means that every student, not every student, many students have some kind of an electronic device that they can actually research a question or a topic that you give them. And so I would tell college instructors to stop collecting these or telling students that this thing does not exist in their room, because sometimes it's the thing that will allow the students to sort of relax, because if they can jump on this and do a little research, it kind of lightens the air in the room, and for some students it actually gets them excited to be able to look something up right then. So another positive perception of a facilitated type of classroom is it's not lecture based. The student may understand that not only is the teacher an expert, but there may be peers in the classroom as well who are experts. Some of the negative sides of a facilitated sort of classroom from a traditional student's perception, traditional students are the 18 to 25 right out high school students, is there might feel to them like it's too much group work or too much discussion groups where they don't feel like they're learning from the teacher, because the expectation is to get the information from the teacher. It may feel like there's no formal structure, and some students may take advantage of that and not participate at all, and they don't feel like they're learning anything. And sometimes, they don't want other students to be their teachers. They want the teacher to be their teacher. Why do I need to learn from this person? But some of that is understanding that your peers have something to share, and it could very well be relevant to you, and plus you make connections with people. A non-traditional student's perception of a facilitator on the positive side may be that they're able to engage all the students in respectful ways that allows the sharing of the expertise from people who have none all the way through the experts in the room. There may be some freedom to determine how the information is presented and shared. So where we have some restriction on what we have to present, we're not restricted generally by a COR and how it gets presented. A facilitator may be perceived as an expert, but does not dictate the learning, right? As a teacher, we dictate the learning. As a facilitator, we have content that we want you to learn, and we help guide you through various processes to learn it. And the facilitator may also present themselves as a peer of sorts, because I've heard some, in my own experience, I've heard some say, well, I'm learning from you as well. So, and then I hear the students go, I came to learn from you, not be your teacher. Whatever. That's one of the negative perceptions, as we flip right into columns, of a non-traditional student, is they want to learn from somebody. They're there because they want to learn more about their subject if they already know something, or they want to learn in sort of an adult fashion. And so a facilitator can be perceived as like they don't know as much about the subject when they're grouping everybody up. It doesn't feel structured. It may feel like that if I'm the expert in the room, I'm being called upon to teach, and I don't want to be your teacher, I want to learn. So sometimes that's a negative perception of a non-traditional student, the ones 25 and older, especially if they have working experience, etc. Those perceptions can impact their sort of desire to be in that classroom. So as facilitators, our goal is to figure out all those things about people and try to find ways that encourages everybody to learn in the various ways that they learn. And it doesn't all have to be group work. Sometimes you can just have a student do something on their own. Some students love that. I'm a just tell me what I have to do and I'll do it type of person, and other students really need that group support, that peer support. So as a facilitator, if we can find out sort of who's who and help have activities that at some point encourages everybody to participate, that's a really positive thing. So what works for adult learners is, which by the way is there's some information in the Knowles text, the adult learner book, is make the classroom environment feel relaxed and collaborative and supportive. Engage the students so they feel like they're participants as opposed to students, quote unquote. Incorporate visual presentations that guide them through the material, and that not only means your PowerPoint, which is now sort of getting to be outdated, that means things like their electronic devices, possibly right now a couple of big things are things like TED Talks on YouTube and other types of learning animation things that are video based. So there's lots of ways to incorporate 21st century technology into student learning, and then have a supportive environment. And I say supportive environment as a repeat because these days for students to sort of want to learn, they need to feel like they're in that type of an environment. And facilitators should try to avoid an authoritarian atmosphere, and that is in a book that I do not have handy. Where is that? It's in a journal article, Goodwin and Watson. In any case, try to avoid an authoritarian atmosphere, the rigid structure of each session being exactly the same. Try to really avoid getting upset on whether or not the participant, the student, is actually participating. Some teachers get really upset about such things, like they get mad, kick you out of the room, etc. But you know what? One thing is they are adults. So at a college setting, even if they're 18 years old, right out of high school, they still have the right to make their own decisions. And I know that we take ownership of our material and we want everybody to learn, and in some cases it makes us mad, especially when you've maybe got them in a group or paired up and one person's not ready and you feel bad for the other whose time is getting wasted. But when we get upset over their participation, really they're adults, so they kind of have the right to participate or not. And that's both in a participation or in their unwillingness to do their assignments. If they don't turn assignments in, they get a 0 and then you move on. They have to live with they, meaning students who are adult students, need to live with their consequences of their actions or the benefits of their actions if they do things. So, it's probably helpful when we don't sort of take everything so personal about how students do or don't in their form of participation. As long as they're not being disrespectful, right? There's a difference in misbehaving and being disrespectful, etc., in a room. Where if they're simply just not wanting to participate, I mean, it's their grade. Community college students are adults, so guide them, provide them with lots of resources. These days, the internet has resources like crazy. The college libraries have resources in the libraries, plus there's EBSCOhost, which has resources available to students online at all times. Treat students with respect, encourage collaboration so that they can foster and enhance their learning, but everything doesn't need to be collaborated. Keep in mind there are some students that do really well and need to have some assignments that they just do on their own. Provide encouragement for their successes. If a student's headed towards failure, consult with them about that trajectory and try to assist them in resetting their path. But again, they do have the right to fail, and sometimes that failure leads to enhanced learning. It may not be of your subject, but it may be about life skills or life the abilities to just be in life. And it may be about how they're going to approach their education as they go forward. So there's lessons to be learned. So with all of that said, what I just did is teach you, because I'm on a video and I'm yammering at you, and I did nothing here that facilitates except for provide you some resources, such as the Adult Learner, which you might borrow from your library or buy on a website. Developing the Adult Learner, which you may also look for, and a couple of articles. And so with all that said, have a great day. I shall talk with you soon, and maybe someday we'll figure out how to facilitate an online PowerPoint. Have a good one.